It started with a flash of green light, tearing across the black void between worlds. A dying lantern drifted in silence, his armor cracked, his heartbeat fading. The core had fallen. The universe screamed for willpower strong enough to fight back. And the ring, the last surviving Green Lantern ring, searched for one thing, hope. But not in this universe. Not anymore. Through shattered dimensions, through worlds unknown, it crossed barriers no ring had ever dared to breach. It flew past alien suns, dead planets, and forgotten gods, until it found Earth 1999, a world preparing for war. On that world stood Steve Rogers, a man out of time, standing on the edge of a broken battlefield, his shield cracked, his body bruised, his resolve unshaken. The world had changed. Heroes had fallen. But Captain America still stood. When the sky split open and the green comet descended, Rogers raised his shield, ready for anything. And then, the voice came. Steve Rogers of Earth, you have the ability to overcome great fear. The ring hovered before him, pulsing with emerald fire. Steve's first instinct wasn't awe, it was duty. He didn't ask what it was. He asked, who needs help? The ring didn't answer, it simply acted. It encircled his finger, and in an instant, a surge of pure willpower exploded through his veins. The pain was immense, like his soul was being rewritten. His heartbeat synchronized with the cosmos. And before he could breathe again, he stood no longer in his torn uniform, but in gleaming emerald armor, his shield glowing with a living symbol, the emblem of the Green Lantern Corps. The sky above him shimmered. The battlefield vanished. He was standing among the stars. For the first time in his life, Captain America saw the universe in full, and it was dying. He heard the whispers of countless lanterns, the fading echoes of OA, the cries of worlds devoured by fear. The parallax entity was free once more, and the core was gone. Steve clenched his glowing fist. He didn't know what parallax was. He didn't know who had fallen. But he knew one thing. Someone had to stand up. In the distance, something stirred. A figure made of yellow fire, eyes like dying suns. You don't belong here, soldier, the voice hissed. Go back to your world. Rogers didn't move. His ring responded to his heart, and his heart refused to yield. If someone's in danger, he said, I'm already where I need to be. The entity lunged, and for the first time, Captain America fought not with steel or flesh, but with will. His shield became light. His strikes carried emotion. Every move was an idea, justice, duty, courage. But parallax wasn't just an enemy, it was fear itself. And for a moment, even Steve Rogers, the man who never backed down, felt it. The ring flickered, his vision blurred. He saw his failures, Bucky falling, Peggy aging, the wars that never ended, the galaxy closing in darkness. Fear crept in. But then, a voice, quiet, familiar, human, whispered through the storm. On your left. Steve's eyes snapped open. A memory, promise. The ring surged again, brighter than ever. With a shout, he hurled his emerald shield forward, slicing through the creature's light and shattering the darkness. The parallax recoiled, not destroyed, but forced away. Steve floated alone in silence, breathing hard, surrounded by cosmic dust. He looked at his glowing hand, the ring still pulsing with life. The voice returned, faint but resolute. Welcome to the core, Lantern Rogers. But there was no one left to welcome him. No guardians. No lanterns. Just him. Back on Earth, the Avengers scanned the skies. Thor swore he'd seen the green fire of Midgard's heavens. Tony dismissed it as debris from some alien war. But deep down, they all felt it. Something had changed. Days passed. Weeks. Steve didn't return to Earth immediately. The ring showed him worlds crying for justice. Refugees from the Sinestro Corps, planets swallowed by chaos. And in each one, Steve fought. Not for conquest, not for glory. For the simple truth he'd always lived by. No one gets left behind. He learned the language of the stars. He met survivors of the Corps who whispered of a new OA, a hidden refuge. They called him the Human Lantern. They feared him at first, then followed him. He wasn't meant to lead them, but he did. Because that's what Steve Rogers did on battlefields or galaxies. He carried the flag of hope. But with every victory, a question grew inside him. If willpower created light, what stopped it from consuming him? He remembered the super soldier serum, how it amplified the man he already was. Now, the ring was doing the same. Only this time, it wasn't amplifying muscle. It was amplifying will. And even the purest will can break. On the edge of the Andromeda Rift, Steve saw something, a signal, a flicker of green among the void. He followed it, and what he found changed everything. A ship, buried in cosmic dust, its engines cold. Inside, a single, dying lantern. Hal Jordan, barely alive, his armor fractured, his eyes dim. Steve caught him as he fell. You're not from here, Hal whispered. Neither are you, Steve replied. Hal smiled faintly. The core, it's gone. The fear spreads. Don't let it win. Steve held his hand until the light faded. And when Hal Jordan, Earth's greatest lantern, took his final breath, Steve Rogers saluted. Then the green light left Hal's ring and merged with Steve's. 2 rings, 2 wills, 1 man. The light flared across the void like a reborn sun. And somewhere, in the deep chambers of the universe, something watched. The human lantern, it whispered. He could be our weapon, or our undoing. Steve didn't hear it. He only saw one path ahead: rebuild the core. Restore the light, whatever it takes. But shadows were already moving, and the price of that oath was far greater than he knew. The stars burned silent as Steve Rogers, now the human lantern, drifted between dying suns. The weight of 2 rings pressed against his soul, 2 legacies, 2 oaths, 1 impossible burden. He had buried Hal Jordan, wrapped in light, his grave orbiting a nameless moon. There were no words to honor the greatest lantern, only a vow, to rebuild what had fallen, to restore justice to the stars. But the light of willpower always casts a shadow. As Steve journeyed deeper into space, he began to hear whispers in the ring, fragments of memories that weren't his own, battles fought by lanterns long dead, warnings left behind by the guardians of OA. Beware the yellow light, for fear feeds where will begins to fade. He ignored it at first. He had faced fear his entire life. Nazis, aliens, civil wars. But this was different. This wasn't fear from without, it was fear within. Each time he used the ring, he could feel it pushing him, demanding more focus, more emotion, more will. And deep inside that emerald glow, something else stared back. Presence. A shadow. One night, drifting above a fractured planet once ruled by the Sinestro core, Steve saw it, the symbol of fear carved into the rock. A yellow sigil, glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat, and beneath it, a voice. Soldier of will, do you ever doubt your cause? Steve raised his shield, the green aura surrounding him. I've had doubts, he said, but I never stop fighting. The voice laughed, deep, resonant, ancient. Even when you fight the inevitable? The light around him flickered. The ring pulsed erratically. He saw visions, entire worlds turning on heroes they once worshipped. Lanterns slaughtering each other in fear. The guardians abandoning the universe. And then he saw himself, his green light burning too bright, consuming the stars. Steve clenched his fist, forcing the images away. That's not who I am. No, the voice replied, but it's what you could become. The yellow light receded, leaving only silence. But the seed of doubt was planted. Back on Earth, months had passed since Steve's disappearance. The Avengers searched endlessly. Tony Stark had tracked faint traces of unknown cosmic radiation. Thor spoke of Midgard's Green Sentinel, but none could reach him, until one night the Bifrost cracked open in orbit, and Thor stepped into the void. Lightning met emerald light. Steve Rogers. Thor's voice echoed across the stars. You live. Steve smiled faintly. Barely. Thor looked at the glowing ring. The power you wield, It feels wrong. Even Asgard trembles before it. Steve didn't respond. Instead, he showed him the ruins of the core. Floating constructs, shattered lantern batteries, broken symbols drifting in zero gravity. Thor grew silent. By Odin? Who could have done this? Steve's voice was steady. Fear. As they searched, the ring flared again, and a burst of yellow energy struck from the darkness. Sinestro, the once great lantern, emerged, his armor gleaming like gold, his eyes burning with cruel intelligence. The mighty Captain America, he sneered. A soldier wielding light he cannot comprehend. Thor raised his hammer. You will fall, serpent of fear. But Sinestro wasn't here to fight. Not yet. He circled Steve like a predator. You wear 2 rings. That alone breaks every law the Guardians ever made. You think that makes you chosen? It makes you dangerous. Steve glared at him. You destroyed the core. You murdered innocent worlds. Sinestro smiled. And what will you do about it, soldier? Kill me? Become like me? Before Steve could strike, Sinestro vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a single sentence that echoed through the void. Will and fear are brothers, Rogers. One always consumes the other. Thor turned to Steve. He taunts you, friend. Do not let his poison take root. Steve didn't answer. He just stared at his hands, at the faint trace of yellow light flickering beneath the green. They returned to Earth soon after. Steve's reappearance made headlines. The world hailed him as a cosmic guardian. But the man behind the mask was changing. At night, he heard whispers in his dreams. Lanterns calling for help. Hal's voice fading into static. Sinestro's laughter. The next day, he gathered the Avengers in the briefing room. I'm leaving again, he said. Tony frowned. You just got back. This planet's safe. The rest of the universe isn't. Natasha studied him. You're different, Steve. Harder. He didn't deny it. Maybe the ring's changing me. Maybe I'm changing it. But I can't sit here while entire galaxies burn. Thor placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you will not go alone. But Steve shook his head. This fight isn't for gods or billionaires. It's for those who've lost everything. The core deserves justice. And with that, he was gone. Out among the stars again. Alone. Each new battle tested him. He built constructs with precision no human mind should control. Entire fleets of emerald ships, legions of soldiers born from will. He liberated planets, toppled dictators, restored peace. But peace built by one man's will is fragile. The survivors of the core began to whisper. Lantern Rogers is becoming something else. He commands light like a god. He doesn't just protect, he decides. Steve didn't notice. Or maybe he did but refused to stop. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw hell. He saw Sinestro. He saw a universe trembling in fear. And then, one day, as he stood before a shattered power battery, a voice echoed again. Fear is not your enemy, Steve Rogers. It is your ally. He turned. And there, from the yellow mist, emerged Sinestro once more. Look at what you've done, Sinestro said. You've conquered worlds in the name of justice. You've bent reality to your will. Tell me, is that so different from what I've done? Steve clenched his glowing fist. You use fear to enslave. I use will to free. Sinestro smirked. Do you truly believe there's a difference? You think freedom can exist under the shadow of your will? Steve's ring pulsed violently. The two lights, green and yellow, clashed, intertwining in the void. Sinestro leaned closer, his voice low and venomous. You're not a lantern, Rogers. You're a soldier who never stopped fighting a war that ended long ago. The ring didn't choose you because of your will. It chose you because you can't stop fighting, even when you should. For a moment, Steve faltered. The light dimmed. He saw all the lives lost in his crusade, all the worlds saved through force, all the choices made by one man's conviction. Was he still a hero, or had he become something else entirely? Sinestro extended his hand. Join me, Steve. Together we can forge a new core, one built not on fear or will, but control. The offer hung in the air. Steve looked down at the twin rings on his hand. One green, one faintly yellow. And for the first time, he didn't know which one was winning. The stars fell silent as Steve Rogers stared into the void. Sinestro's hand extended before him. Two lights shimmered between them. Green and yellow, will and fear, locked in a perfect, poisonous balance. For a heartbeat, Steve didn't move. Every instinct told him to fight. Every memory told him to trust his heart. But the rings pulsed harder, as if the universe itself demanded a decision. He closed his eyes, and for the first time since the war, he hesitated. "You think you know me, Sinestro?" Steve said quietly. "But I've seen what fear does. I've fought men who used it. I've seen it tear worlds apart." Sinestro tilted his head, intrigued. "And yet here you stand, wielding it." Steve looked down at his hands. Both rings glowed, twin forces trapped in a soldier's grip. "Maybe it's not about rejecting fear," he said. "Maybe it's about controlling it." Sinestro smiled, cold and knowing. "Then perhaps, Captain, we are not so different." Steve didn't answer. He turned his gaze toward the stars, toward the ruins of OA, the graveyard of lanterns. "I'm not your ally, Sinestro, but if I'm going to rebuild the core, I'll need to understand both sides." The yellow lantern laughed softly, spoken like a true guardian, and then he vanished. For weeks, Steve trained. Not his body, his mind. He learned to balance the energies, to draw willpower without letting fear take root. But each lesson cut deeper. The yellow light whispered truths no soldier wanted to hear. Every victory you ever won, Steve, came from fear. Fear of failure. Fear of loss. Fear of letting them down. He denied it at first. Then he realized maybe that's why the ring had chosen him. Not because he was fearless, but because he had learned to fight through fear. And yet there was a price. The green energy that once felt pure began to fracture. His constructs wavered. The core survivors, those few still loyal to him, began to notice. "Lantern Rogers," one of them said. "Your light, it flickers like the yellow suns of Daxam. Are you well?" Steve forced a smile. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. Inside, the war between will and fear tore him apart. And somewhere deep within that storm, something ancient stirred. The entity of fear, Parallax, had never truly left. It had simply waited. When Steve reached the ruins of OA, the ground trembled. The central battery, shattered and dormant, began to glow once more. Yellow cracks spreading like veins through emerald stone. And from within, a voice like thunder rolled through the void. "I gave you power, soldier. You used it well. But now I want it back." The light erupted. A colossal serpent of golden flame emerged. The true Parallax, reborn from the corruption in Steve's heart. He fell to one knee, the weight of the entity crushing him. His shields shattered. His will faltered. He heard Hal Jordan's voice echo in memory. "Don't let it win." But the voice was fading. The yellow light coiled around him, whispering promises. "You could save them all, Steve. Earth. The core. Just let me in." The soldier in him knew what that meant. Surrender. The hero in him knew it was the only way. For a brief, terrifying moment, he almost said yes. But then, from the shadows, another light appeared. Soft, white, pure. A figure stepped forward. Carol Ferris, the star sapphire, bearer of the violet light of love. Her presence radiated calm amid the chaos. "Steve," she said gently, "you're losing yourself." He tried to speak, but the fear constricted his throat. "You think you can fight the universe alone," she continued. "But will without compassion becomes tyranny." Parallax hissed, recoiling from her light. "Love is weakness," it snarled. Carol's eyes narrowed. "No, it's what keeps us human." She reached out, her violet light merging with Steve's green. A surge of color that forced the yellow back. Steve gasped for air. The weight lifted, the fear receding but not gone. Carol steadied him. "You don't have to carry both rings." He looked at her, exhausted. If I don't, the fear spreads. Then let me help you carry it. Together, their lights intertwined, green and violet, will and love, pushing the yellow fire into the void. Parallax screamed and vanished into the rift. Silence. For a long time, Steve just floated there, staring at the rebuilt fragments of OA. He finally spoke, voice trembling. I thought I could rebuild the core with will alone. Carol nodded. You can't lead with light if you don't understand the dark. He looked at his hands, both rings now dim. Maybe it's time the core wasn't just about will. Maybe it's about balance. Carol smiled faintly. Then make it so, Captain. Months later, the universe began to heal. The green flame of OA flickered once more. Lanterns, new and old, returned from the edges of existence, drawn to a beacon unlike any before. In the center of the new citadel stood a monument, the unified lantern battery, glowing not green, not yellow, not violet, but all colors merged into one. At its base stood Steve Rogers, his uniform a fusion of emerald and white, his shield now marked with the symbol of unity. Lanterns gathered, watching as he raised the shield high. We were divided by fear, by will, by love, by rage. But no more. Today we stand as one core, not as soldiers of light, but as guardians of balance. The assembled lanterns bowed their heads. The oath that followed was new, forged by a man who had once only known battle. In brightest day, in darkest night, let balance guide our endless fight. The light and dark in one combined, so truth and will shall be aligned. As the new core rose, the universe shimmered. The fear was gone, but the shadows never truly die. Far beyond the stars, in a place no lantern dared to look, a spark of yellow light flickered once more. A whisper drifted through the void. Balance never lasts, soldier. And Steve Rogers opened his eyes, sensing it, knowing his duty would never end. He looked toward Earth, his home, a distant blue light among countless stars. And with a faint smile he whispered, where there's will, there's always a way.